what's in store. I do. It's just this way at the Dim Carnival.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Dim Carnival. I'm Bill.
I'm Steve.
And I'm Ryan.
And we're talking about Twiztid, Freek Show, Serial Killer, Juggalo, however it goes. We're talking about Twiztid's second album, Freek Show. And watch as we change and mutate into a freak show. Twiztid, Serial Killer, Juggalos.
You gotta do the more nasal, though.
Watch as we change and mutate.
They had those throat things like Kane.
Oh, yeah.
Suck it.
Yeah, it did have that.
Nah.
We're talking about the rest of the album this week. And Happy New Year, Joyeux Noël, Feliz Navidad, Gung Hei Fat Choi. I don't know how to say things in different languages, but
it's 2019, y'all.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's the future.
Whoa. It's colder. Wow. It's colder this year.
Oh, that's weird. That's weird.
So all much for like global warming.
Yeah.
Please read the sarcasm in that.
Guys, do you have any New Year's traditions? Are you guys into any of those superstitions?
What okay. I will say this. Recently, I have taken it upon myself to make Hoppin' John on New Year's Day, because my father and grandmother had a belief. I don't think they believed in it, but they just they were practitioners of the superstition that eating black-eyed peas on New Year's Day was to bring luck in the new year. So I found a dish called. They would just boil a big old pot of black-eyed peas and just eat them, just sullenly. No words, staring off to the middle distance, just shoveling them in. But I found I found out about Hoppin' John, which is a dish that contains black-eyed peas, but also delicious stuff like rice and bacon or a ham bone, as we talked about last week, ham. I've started cooking that up on New Year's Day, and it's tasty, and it's fun for the whole family, and I recommend it. So it's not really a superstition, but it's got its origins in superstition.
It's kind of
and it's just a tradition, I guess you could say now, a new tradition that I have made for me, and I think this year I might have some resolutions, but, so I don't really ascribe to resolutions because it's just sort of like my years just end up being sort of like rolling resolutions. So, yeah, I don't know. You guys got superstitions?
Steve?
So walk under a ladder on New Year's Day.
Yeah. No. I don't really make any resolutions. I mean, last year I made a resolution to just not be a vegetarian, but not eat meat. And I went 8 months without eating meat. And then it was like in August that I finally started eating meat. We had a house guest for a couple months, and we started barbecuing a lot because it was summer. And it wasn't like a commitment to like, I'm doing this for my health, or I'm doing this for spiritual reasons, or animal rights reasons. I was just like, I know my body likes, so I guess it was a little health, because I was like, I know my body likes it when I don't eat meat. And I did it for 8 months, and it was pretty badass. And because like I didn't like say it was something I have to do and made it a big deal, I can't believe how long I actually did it.
Yeah, me and my work out well.
Yeah, it was cool. I just told my roommate, and because we cooked dinners together a lot, so then I just started buying vegetarian options. So he'd cook himself a meat option and a vegetarian option for me, and then like the rest of the sides that were all vegetarian. And it was awesome. And so that will probably be what I'll do in January again. I already started talking about it, but when it's the holidays and everyone's making all this good food, I'm not going to be like, oh yeah, I'm going to stop eating meat right now when everyone's making ham. So that will probably be what I do, but it's not like a New Year's resolution where I'm like, I'm a vegetarian or anything like that. It's just like this nod to, I know what my body likes and I'll put an effort into it for a little while.
What was great about that story, other than, like, I like the story, but what was great about it was when you started telling the story, the way you phrased it, I thought you were going to say, my New Year's resolution was to not be a vegetarian. And I was like, whoa, that seems like a really easy resolution. Just like, go out, like, my resolution is I'm not going to be a vegetarian. Just walk into the kitchen, eat a piece of bacon, you're like, done!
Done!
Year checked off. Bring on 2020.
God, well, if 2019 is anything like 2018 with some of the way things are going, I could use a skip.
Wow. Well, I'm too old to stay up till midnight anymore.
Oh God, no. Yeah, no, that's not happening.
But when I was younger, actually, when I used to be married, my wife and her family.
Drop in the Married with Children crowd noise sound effect. Seemed like the joke.
Yeah, I did. That was good.
Thanks for that, Bill.
Go ahead.
My wife's family had, my ex-wife's family had a bunch of traditions and a bunch of superstitions that they did. And they would eat 12 grapes with every chime of the clock.
What? Wait. Every time, you gotta eat so many grapes so fast.
Right.
That's a lot of grapes in 1 second.
It's really hard to eat a lot of grapes. And you gotta.
So they're eating 140.
You married a Joey Chestnut?
They're eating like 120 grapes.
No, 12 grapes. 1 grape on each.
Oh.
Oh, you made it sound like they ate
12
grapes
you definitely
on
said
each.
12 grapes on each chime.
Well, I mean, you know what I said, but listen to what I mean, not what I say.
I just like this idea. That was crazy.
144 grapes is too many grapes.
I thought you were married to Joey Chestnut.
Eating 12 grapes in, several seconds is still a lot. That's a lot of grapes. And then
Ryan, it's very easy. You just put 12 grapes in your mouth and chew them up as a clock chime. Then you swallow when it's done. Speaking of swallowing when it's done, let's talk about... No, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, man.
No, I want to hear more about this.
The other one was that they ran in and out of the door carrying luggage, because that was supposed to mean that you were going to get to travel in the following year, but your segue was great.
Wait, so what the fuck? They're, like, running in and out of the doorway with luggage eating grapes?
Yeah. And then you got to do the toast, right? Everybody's got to toast, and you got to kiss when it's midnight, but then you got to eat the grapes, and you got to run out the door. You got to make sure your suitcases are there.
So everyone's running around swinging suitcases into each other while they're tongue kissing with grapes swapping back and forth and chimes going on.
This is what it's like to be married to a Latina woman. Very superstitious family. It was great.
Like it. Well, on that note, that was awesome, guys. Thank you. That was very good. Our best intro yet, I think. And a good way to rate it 2008. I hope any of that makes it into the episode. But we're talking about Freek Show. Once again, we're not going to get. We're not really going to go like, listen to this track now, like we do with the ICP releases. But we are going to get a little bit more granular this time because we're going to talk about, some of the standout tracks. There's too many tracks that sound the same for us to talk about all the tracks. We talked about the worst track on the album last week. So let's talk about not the worst track and not the best track on the album this week. Let's talk about Fuck on the First Date, guys, because this is where the middle section of the album happens.
I guess maybe for me the next 4 tracks are just not even worth listening to.
Garbo.
For Fuck on the First Date, I made a bullet point, wrote the name of the title, and then wrote, licked a girl's butthole. It was fresh. And then the last thing I wrote was, it was consensual, because that was the takeaway from the song I did not like, but that at least it is all consensual.
So I only wrote one note for this song, and I wrote, why do you want to rap about your dick and cum? To me, it's super weird to write a song about your dick and your cum.
The way you said that almost sounded like on that freestyle rap at the end of Bazaar. Why do you want to rap about your dick and cum? That was like a rude boy making fun of.
I rapped about the dick and cum right here. Right.
It just seems like such a strange thing to me. And do they, I guess,
imagine how his dick feels.
He think, I don't know. They think it's sexy. They think that women want to hear that. Maybe they do. I don't know.
Well,
it just seems really awkward to me.
Here's the thing. This is yet another installment in Jamie Madrox's ever-going quest to have anyone rub his butt. And after him protesting so much through so many tracks to this point, I can only infer that, Jamie Madrox getting his butt rubbed, that's there's nothing better for that guy. That's the top of the food chain vis-a-vis sex acts for him. Oh, you're Googling butt rubs. Googling butt plus rub plus have to.
Plus multiple man.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cool.
What did Jeeves say, buddy?
You asked Jeeves about getting your butt.
I'm old.
No, it's a timeless joke. No, seriously, everyone loves that joke.
The internet dad joke.
No, come on, man. Seriously. It's a good joke.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Come off it.
So I guess what I feel like, since Steve is being the old man, then what I feel like this series of songs, I guess the next few tracks, to me, feel sort of stunted, in maturity or whatever. It made me think of cause the songs are do you really know what it's like to be me?
Mm.
And fuck you, just leave me alone, And
I feel like All I Ever Wanted is also the weakest of the ICP stuff on this album.
So yeah, well, and I thought so when we got to All I Ever Wanted, I was like, oh, well, this is starting to pick up, and then of course ICP's on there, and so I was like, oh, okay, so this one has a little bit better production value, and it's a little bit more of a familiar sound maybe, but yeah, everything leading up to that, and people are strange. It just made me feel, and these guys were 20 years old when this came out. 99.
They're older.
They were 30.
Yeah.
Oof.
Another 6.
It just made me think of when I was in creative writing
in 99,
class.
so they're in their 50s now? They're almost 50?
They're the same age as Violent J and Shaggy. I think they're actually 1 year younger than each of them.
And how old are they again?
A few years older than you?
I'm 43.
Take that.
Yeah, so I think they're 47.
Well, actually, they are the same age. Well, Jamie Madrox is the same age as Steve. Steve. Jamie Madrox was born November 5th, 1975. So he's a little bit younger than Steve?
Yeah, I was born in April 20.
Yeah!
420. Yeah.
And Monoxide Child is older.
In any case, it made me think of when I was in creative writing class, my senior year of high school, and I was
I wasn't 30 years old in 1999, by the way.
How old were you? Almost. You were almost 30. 26? It was, and I try to think of something, something smart, think of something that means something, like sit down and want to write a song or whatever, got to think of something. And that's just kind of what I felt like they were doing, like trying to think about their identity and put out a song that's like really introspective and meaningful. What I'm suggesting is that maybe young adult white dudes, when they have to sit down and think about their feelings and their identity because of the way that our society is, that there's not many struggles that white men feel. And so for them to sit down and be like really write something that's like, or think about something that's really introspective, to me, there's only really shallow things that you can really look at. Like, do you really understand what my identity is? Like, that's as deep as you can be, right? If you're just a young white dude who's like really trying to think about it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I guess that's just what I felt. It's like, well, they're trying to like think about their identity or whatever. But it just seemed a little bit immature. And I don't mean that in a bad way, like a little kid, but just like not a fully formed.
No, it makes
idea.
Total sense. Like that's what every white male in their 20s, and a lot of white males their entire lives, like the only struggle that they have. And that's why like so much of that late 90s, early 2000s, like emo and pop punk and punk that I still like admittedly love very much is just so fucking embarrassing to listen to now, because it's like all of the songs, like they're just like so sad and they're so deep, but like the content is just like, this girl won't talk to me. Like that's the worst part of their life.
Yeah. But
no,
go ahead, Steve.
I was gonna say, it made me think of a conversation that you and I, Ryan, had when we both lived with Bill in San Francisco at the Stone whatever apartments. We were talking one day because I had like made a joke with a friend at school, and I said bitch, and you and I started talking about, like, she was saying, oh, you shouldn't say that word, and then I had this thing back then where I was still like, oh no, it's freedom of speech, and you're not going to let like people take away us saying certain words. And it was just totally this like right-wing trope that like stuck with me throughout, even though as I was evolving and becoming way more progressive in my thinking, and especially because like back then I was super crazy vegan and all these, like, I thought I was an anarchist and all these dumb things, and like but like I still had this like kind of right-wing trope about freedom of speech, and I can say, and you really helped me, like, you talked me through this in a conversation when we walked around Westlake. And I don't know if you remember that. That really stood out to me, because I also kind of had that trope of like, oh, it's not so much racism as like class warfare. And then like you really started laying things out for me, and one of the first people that and maybe unfortunately, because I'm sure I had friends that were people of color that told me this too, and it probably didn't stick until like my white friend told me that, which is awful to admit, but I think that still really plays a big role. That's why I've always like had a huge esteem for you about how much influence you had in like opening up my eyes to stuff, and did it in such a nice way where you didn't make me feel stupid. And so
cool, man. That's dope.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome, man.
So I was just like Twiztid is my point.
But I think Leave Me Alone, it just felt like a not gross, but just like a really underwhelming, like Limp Bizkit-y, like I've got so much frustration or whatever. I skipped right past that one. The People Are Strange thing, the song is just depressing.
Yeah.
But then you get to All I Ever Wanted, and I can't hear the melody in my head right now of how it goes. But
All I ever wanted was something that I got. All I ever wanted was a bird that I never got.
Right. So I wrote that I really like the music, even though I can't exactly hear it. But then I feel like the album gets kind of mixed from there. Yeah. It hits this kind of low trough in the middle, but I feel like it's a pretty good grab bag after this.
But that's exactly it. It's a grab bag, and there's just like so many tracks, and like none of them stand out really. Like I think the Dark Lotus song is very good, And of course, guys, we have to talk about what happens before the Dark Lotus song. But like the 2 tracks of the ICP are good. I think the 3-6 Mafia with ABK and Twiztid and Blaze on it like is at least something different. And also like I think that ICP that Twiztid using the N-word on this album is like pretty brazen and brave and bold, considering that they have a track with 3-6 Mafia on here.
Yeah. I guess I didn't really say that last week, but I sort of felt like that the industry would police them to some extent, or unless they're just completely wholly excluded because of their association with ICP as being like not even part. I don't know. I can't think of a reasonable explanation.
Yeah.
But I feel like the industry, at least there's precedent of them doing that. So I feel like if there was a real problem with it, I don't know. I have to assume that if they're still doing it, that they're getting a pass.
Steve, you have any notes or thoughts on tracks 9 through 15?
I mean, technically, yes, for every I mean, but, you know, like, things like For All I Ever Wanted, I wrote Shags, because when I heard his voice, I just wrote it down. And then I was like...
Well, I know that guy.
Yeah, pretty much. I said good verse and chop. Apparently he says chop in there. I don't remember now. And then cool song Jay. Yeah, Jay of course is great in it. And then I like he talks about a head being bashed in. It looks like a bowl of spaghetti. I thought that was brilliant. So
I thought that the weed song Bags, you talked about that a little bit last week.
Yeah.
I thought that the note that I wrote is this is a weed song, but that it's kind of aggressive. It's kind of aggressive for a weed song. It's like, I'm gonna smoke that weed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nobody's gonna stop me.
Another thing I wanted to point out is on the previous track, I Want to Be. He's like talking about Batman. And one of the first things he says is that I think it might be the first thing he says is that he wants to be Batman because he doesn't give a shit about anyone.
Oh yeah, that is the first mention that famous first. That's the first time I have noticed them name drop Batman or Robin, because in subsequent years, the Batman and Robin iconography will become very not I wouldn't say like central or like a big part of Twiztid, but it would definitely become part of Twiztid's thing, where Jamie Madrox is Batman and Monoxide Child is Robin, and like they had like a lot of logos and merchandise where Monoxide is Robin and Madrox is Batman. But yeah. Go on. You were in the middle of saying a thing.
Oh, was I? I don't remember what I was saying.
Sweet. All right.
Oh, just that about Batman. That Batman is generally, we talk about him as being like a sociopath or being, not a mentally ill person or whatever. And so I just thought that, but most people I don't think of Batman that way, as not giving a fuck about anybody, or if that's not what he's really trying to say.
I don't know.
Well, I would think Batman gives a fuck about everyone but himself.
I don't think he does. I think he's actually a really bad person. Is that not? I thought that was.
No, you're right. He spends his days walking around punching the mentally ill.
So anyways, Batman.
Yeah.
I've always dug the Batman symbol logo. It was like their original old, like, squiggly, psychedelic Twiztid font over the spread Batman cape.
Yeah, that was really cool. Yeah. What the Dead like was interesting. They talked about all these different dimensions of being dead. I thought that was kind of weird.
Yeah, I think What the Dead like is a pretty good song.
Yeah. I just thought it was funny, like, when Violent J's sitting there trying to, like, sound all serious, talking about all these multiple layers of being dead.
What the Dead like is one of those where it's got that guitar in it, and by the time you get to whatever track 11 we're on, it's like, it's just, you're suffering this sound.
Yeah.
And it's too bad, because if it was just, it was just used a little bit more sparingly, I'm sure it'd be fine.
Yeah.
I mean, like, seriously, like, I only remember where it's going down because it's the one with 3-6 Mafia on it, but like Empty, Bags, I Want to Be, Broken Wings.
Yeah.
I don't really. I remember Broken Wings a little bit, but like I just don't really remember most of these songs because they're just all the same.
Okay, well, so then let's talk about let's talk about one thing that I think we all love.
Oh yeah,
that happens on this album,
Mm-hmm.
and that is the introduction of Vampiro.
Vampiro, go.
Woo!
It's so amazing that like I did not at all remember that that's where this is the actual song that all of his rambling on Forgotten Freshness, this is where it actually comes from, and I like totally did not realize that at all, because like we reference it so much all the time, but it just who would have thought that this is the track where it actually is used.
Right, I had no idea. So I was just
I'm sure you went
thrilled.
That shit.
Yeah, I love it. Totally amazing. And so Vampiro gets on there, and I feel like he's freestyling. Like it has a feel of, cause he's kind of stumbling through it, at some points, but really delivering an amazing performance, explaining the Dark Lotus, or introducing the Dark Lotus. And so it's, just an incredible piece of spoken word poetry from Vampiro. Go. All hail the Lotus Pod, from hence we came. Best song on the album I wrote. As soon as that comes in, of course, it's got this intro.
Yeah.
So this is kind of like and Jeremy wrote about this. Thank you, Jeremy, for emailing us again. About the increasing influence of Dark Lotus-esque things, or like the building of the Dark Lotus that is eventually about to become. And so there, it's mentioned in different places, and he actually gives us a list, that it's, on What the Dead Like. Maniac Killa references Dark Lotus in the intro, performed by Vampiro. It's got verses from Violent J, Shaggy, Monoxide, Jamie Madrox, and Blaze. And then apparently, around this time, Isham did eventually release an album called Tongues, which was the one I think was supposed to be originally part of the Necronomicon. And he mentions Dark Lotus on that album.
Interesting.
And so that was kind of what was in my head, knowing that we were going to be listening to Dark Lotus, next, was I was hearing that a little bit when I was listening to this, and I love the chorus on this song, but the verses, I don't know so much.
Yeah, it's like a decent intro to Dark Lotus. Of course, it's timeless because of the intro, but it just a taste of what we're gonna get when we get here next week and we talk about Dark Lotus for realsies. But any last thoughts on any of these tracks here? Nope, none. Zero.
For different, I wrote, it seems fine, but honestly with the guitar.
The last song, when I listened to it, it's a suicide song, and my initial thought when I heard it was it really tripped me out, and it was done kind of well, and it bothered me, but also, I don't know, it was just a trippy song to me. Normally I wouldn't like something like that, but it kind of was like a decent like rap version to me of Fade to Black, and I don't know if that would be like sacrilege to say, and you can cut all this out if you would like, because I really don't care if you add it, but it's just something that like sprung up on me. I had mixed feelings about the song, and it made me way sadder than I was expecting. I wasn't expecting that to hear it, but then also songs like that, when I'm really sad, kind of uplift me in a weird way, because I always think like, okay, here's someone who expressed like this, like wanting to end their life, but like the artist who sang it, whether they really felt it or not, I know they're still alive. And so like those songs sometimes are kind of positive to me when I'm feeling really low. And so I just wanted to throw that out there, that song had way more effect on me, and I wasn't expecting it, because I don't know that I ever heard that song. I don't know if I made it to that far in the album. But
Yeah, it's quite a trek to get there.
yeah, yeah. And then I think it stops, and then there's like a break and something else at the end that I couldn't finish listening to. But
Well,
Yeah.
the secret track starts at 4 minutes and 20 seconds.
Yeah. Blaze it.
yeah, I don't remember what it was, but I didn't finish it. Whatever it
Just
was.
another song. Just more of the same.
Before I want to talk about this more, but I want to get in that the music on this song is a sample. There's only a couple samples. I can't remember what the other one is actually at the moment. But the music is sampled from the soundtrack to the Batman film from 1966.
Whoa.
It is a song that is sung by the Penguin, that is sung by, Burgess Meredith as
Nice.
Penguin.
Love it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes. So definitely recommend. It's the only one that I listened to off the album, but you can find it on YouTube, and I imagine that everything else is probably equally as good. I'm gonna go back and listen to that album now. But yeah, super rad song. And so they sampled that for the music, and it's a great sample. I think the music in this song is great.
Yeah.
And so that's interesting. I'm glad you shared that, Steve. I also felt a little bit unsure about how I was supposed to feel about the song.
Yeah.
Because just the content, it was like, so it's interesting to hear you say, because I felt it was sort of bracing, like not necessarily in a good way, to hear him sing this, have them singing this sort of compassionate song, after having, done something violent to themselves or whatever.
Yeah.
So I wasn't sure how I was supposed to feel about it. It was obviously I felt like it was clear that I was meant to feel like it was uplifting and positive.
I don't know that it's supposed to be uplifting and positive. For me, when I'm feeling really low, and I've had thoughts and been oftentimes in my life where I, thought maybe not living was a good option, I find that songs about suicide actually uplift me. So if I'm feeling really low, I will go on to YouTube and put on Fade to Black and listen to it 5 times in a row. And I might cry the first few times, but by the end of it, I feel good. And even though it's a super dark song and the person in the song clearly goes through with it, it turns out I don't know that James Hetfield, I assume he wrote that song, the lyrics to it, and I don't know if he ever felt those feelings, but he's still alive, and there's just something cool about that to me, because it's just this release. And certainly that doesn't work for everyone, of course. Everyone's different. But I've always found this. So when I heard this song, it just tripped me out, because it just struck me the way that song struck me. And I'll admit, I had tears when I listened to this song the first time through, because I was not expecting that. And it was pretty powerful for me. And because of just my weird interpretation of how I react to that stuff, it may not be an uplifting song for a lot of people, and I wouldn't recommend it necessarily, but just that's how it affected me. And I thought it was a great song because of it.
That's awesome. I'm glad that on an album that we bagged on so much and that I found such a struggle to get through, I'm glad that you were able to have a genuine connection to it.
Yeah, I was not expecting that. Yeah.
That's cool, man. I think it kind of, and I think in some ways that I think that speaks to what is something special that Twiztid is able to do, a connection that they're able to make with people, and maybe they weren't as solid with it on this album, but I think that they still know what they're working with. I agree with you, Bill, what you said last week, that they're trying to stand on their own. I think that was a good call. And so I expect, there's a huge amount of talent that they show on this album, and we know that was there already. And so I'm sure that we're going to get to see a lot of great stuff come out of them. And everything else that I've heard from them, which isn't much, doesn't sound like this. So, I'm optimistic, even though, some of this, it was difficult to listen to this album. It was unfortunate just because of the similarity throughout, or whatever the monotonous nature of it is a big detriment, I feel.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's crazy because at the same time, while they're doing that with this is what my complaint with the album was to begin with, was that I thought like they're so good at what they do, and the music kind of ruined it for me.
Yeah, I'm curious to know. I meant to look up more about Fritz the Cat and find out more about him and what his, if he has a tenured career, or like, what his sound is more of like. Yeah. But I didn't, so we'll find out. Maybe we'll have some more Fritz the Cat later on.
I don't even know what's the next album after this.
The next Twiztid album?
Yeah.
I think it's the Mirror Mirror EP and then Man's Myth, but I could be wrong. Could be horribly wrong.
I think Green Book's in there before Man's Myth.
Green Book is what's listed on Twitter.
Really? Huh. I would have thought Green Book came after Man's Myth and Mutant, but shows you what I know.
No, it came out 2 years before Man's Myth.
Wow. All right. Cool. Well, shall we, do we have any last thoughts on Freek Show before we close up the old satchel on this one?
Well, I just want to say that I did click ahead to the Man's Myth Wikipedia page, and Fritz the Cat, he is credited with producing about half the tracks on this record, so it sounds like we probably will get to talk some more about Fritz the Cat.
But the music does get better.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's something to look forward to.
So hang in there, buddy. All right. Thanks to everybody for listening as always. And I forgot to do this last time, but follow us on Twitter at Dim Carnival, on Instagram. Ryan's great at Instagram, as we all know. And email us, dimcarnival@gmail.com. You can follow me on Twitter at Sundown Motel. Is there any other business I'm forgetting, guys?
No, I guess that's what's next. What do we listen to next?
Oh yeah, what we're listening to next is the Lotus Pod.
Lotus Pod.
We're listening to the let's say first 4 tracks off of Dark Lotus's debut album, The Lotus Pod. Tales from the Lotus Pod. And that will be... One second. My bad. You're going to have to edit this down a little bit.
The first 4 tracks.
Mm-hmm.
Intro,
Mm-hmm.
Alibaba,
Mm-hmm.
Something,
Mm-hmm.
and I Hurt Myself.
Yes. Perfect. Okay. So you're listening to those 4 tracks. Thank you, Ryan. And what we're going to be doing is we're listening to both the Mars album version and the ABK version. We're listening to both of them, and we're just going to talk about the track as a whole and point out differences where they may appear. But that is how we're doing it. So if you only have access to the definitive version, which is the version with Anybody Killa, that's fine. That's the one on Spotify. That's the one that's easy to find. Totally fine if you only want to listen to that version. Just be aware that we will be discussing at least some goings on with the Mars versions. So that's what we're going to be doing with next week. I'm very excited because I've already listened to this album, and spoilers, but I think this album fucking rules. So we will see you next week for that. I'm excited. I hope that these guys are excited. I'm really, really looking forward to the conversation about what they are bringing to the table, what their experience of the album is. But we will talk about that next week. Until then, I'm Bill.
I'm Steve.
And I'm Ryan.
And this is the Dim Carnival from Hence We Came.